Hello, my little Jimbos, Jimbobs, and Jimbobinas. I am xlatrina, and welcome to my channel. Today I want to just chill, relax, kick back, and talk about something that I love immensely, comics. But of course, in this day and age where digital is the way to go, I'm going to specifically talk about my 5 webcomic pet peeves. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. You're probably thinking, Latrina, who gives a shit about your pet peeves? To which I answer, I don't know. Probably fucking nobody. But hey, some of you might share some of these pet peeves and will probably be able to elaborate on it so much better than I could. So let's get right into it. I'm just going to go off on a straight list and then I will elaborate a little bit later. So 1, super similar plot lines. 2, grammar and spelling mistakes. Okay, those things fucking suck. 3, please web cartoonists, that's what I'm gonna call y'all, all of us. Please, web cartoonists, stop drawing out one itty bitty subplot for more than 2 or maybe 3 episodes or chapters. Just please stop doing that, please. Please stop drawing shit out. Stop dragging shit. 4, super bright art. I don't like those things in comics. It's just not my thing. And 5, super long comics. So now to elaborate on those points. So my first pet peeve was that I felt like there are so many webcomics out there, but I feel like they all tend to follow very similar plot lines. Frankly, I swear this is the case for real. Like, for example, a niche I've been kind of like super into lately is the Isekai Trope, which is like all over my Tapas feed. I mean, I don't know if that's an entirely accurate way to talk about it. I mean, for all I know, everyone's feed on Tapas looks exactly the same aside from your next read section and like your subscription list. I don't know. But what I do know is that a lot of these webcomic creators, whether it be teams or individuals, seem to have this like problem where they tend to write stories that I swear are literally just the same as another. Like, I swear it's the same plot line recycled again and again and again and again and again, because it is. Oh my goodness, especially in Isekai, I swear, like the amount of times those stories all start with something along the lines of, I was this years old, I was hit by a truck, I was hit by a plane, I was hit by a tractor, I was hit by a horse. Like all of them are the same. Oh my goodness, I swear they're literally the same as another. For example, aside from the goddamn getting hit by a truck, train, whatever else bullshit, on my Tapas feed, I noticed there's this like trend almost where the male lead or the second male lead is like almost always an uber pale, tall, broad-shouldered, black-haired dude, and I'm like, look, the dude's alright or whatever, okay? He's not ugly, but like, why the hell is he playing himself in every single isekai romance webcomic? Like, this dude is casting himself as the male lead in every single comic. Every single isekai. Okay, obviously not every single. Granted, there are some instances of creators who like at least kind of try to stand out by doing shit like using maybe an off black color instead of black, or blonde. Oh, there are so many blonde creators. That's kind of like its own thing too. I'm not even gonna front. It's kind of like its own thing too. There are so many blonde male leads as well. Like, oh my goodness. Every now and then I'll see like a brown or white hair lead or something, but oh my goodness, like seriously, pale, tall, broad, and short dark hair is like the look for the basic male lead. With this not enough writing, this pet peeve of mine can get a little easier to deal with, as evident by my own subscription feed, but I do wish this was like further remedied with a more diverse range of designs for the male lead. Although, as you'll notice, I use Tapas to exemplify this, because like, it's like this. I don't read too much on webtoons nowadays, but whenever I do check in on the stories on that app, I notice it has a much more diverse selection, at least from my perspective. Like, it isn't perfect, but I'd argue it isn't as bad as I remembered it to be quite some time ago. Like, I like to imagine that over time, the Tappa's original section will become similar to at some point, but for now, at least, on Tappa's, if nothing else, I just kind of feel like all the male leads look the same, and depending on the niche that you're reading in, and maybe even outside of the niche. Like, why do they all look the fucking same? Honestly, though, I think the biggest reason it's like this on those sort of apps is because, like, both Tappas and Webtoons are based primarily in South Korea, so unsurprisingly, the most popular webcomics on these platforms are probably more so catered to a Korean audience, to be real, given that many popular works are just like translated versions of their Korean counterparts. But I digress. The second pet peeve I listed was grammar and spelling mistakes. Frankly, I won't dwell on this too long because I think it's kind of like very self-explanatory. Problems with grammar and spelling and, like, frankly, the basics of the English language in general will always irritate the hell out of me as an English major. That's pretty much why I stopped using Wattpad for the most part. It was so hard to find stories that kept me engaged because as soon as I saw too many spelling and grammar mistakes, it would trigger the living hell out of me. But, you know, just to let it be known, like, I'm talking about native speakers here, like people who grew up speaking my local language as their first language, like native speakers. You know, this is something I can, like, totally get over in regards to a lot of webcomics, as I understand that many popular webcomics are produced by teams or individuals who are simply translating their work into English. So this pet peeve isn't really, well, not really, like, this pet peeve isn't regarding anyone or any team who aren't native speakers, you know. Next on the list of pet peeves was the common issue of prolonging problems in a story, subplots that really don't need to be prolonged. I mean, look, I get it, okay? We want to make money. You want to have a longer story for people who enjoy long reads to, well, read. Also, money, and maybe algorithm purposes, but money, yes, I get it. Still, please be a little more considerate of your readers. I feel like I tend to fall out of love with a story so quickly when I realize a stupid little subplot that probably isn't even all that interesting, to be honest, is being dragged out for like more than 3, maybe 4 episodes. So web cartoonists, please stop doing this. I promise you are damaging the potential amount of total followers you could get in the long run. Not just for that comic in particular, but for future comics as well. People will remember you or your team as the ones who tend to drag out uninteresting or otherwise subplots in order to milk out more money and engagement. And I mean, it's like, again, I get it. We're writers, artists, and creatives, and frankly, we want to pay our bills and eat too, but as they say, you can't have your cake and eat it too. So please, please, please stop doing this. Please stop doing it. The fourth pet peeve I listed was like super bright art. Now, it's a little tricky talking about this, I feel like. I suppose it's because there are 2 big things that make this pet peeve feel a little, I don't know, mid. Oh, that's the first time I've used the word mid, but as uncomfortable as it makes me, I don't really know how else to describe it. So the 2 things that make me a little unsure if this pet peeve is founded are: 1, brightly colored art can be a matter of art style, and I don't really like shitting on people's art styles, you know. 2, it can also be a matter of saving time when it comes down to comics. I mentioned in another video that may or may not be up by now, though if it is up, this point was mentioned in my Sarada Uchiha Speed Paint video, that one thing I prioritize in characters that will be drawn often is the level of detail in their design. Characters with a lot of detail that will be drawn again and again and again are characters that take up the most time in an art session. Due to that, I totally understand trying to cut back on time by not coloring or coloring without rendering at the end. I mean, shit, I do that myself, so you best believe I'm not gonna crucify people for cutting small corners to make better use of their time. Still, I will argue that while I don't think flat coloring is inherently bad or too bright, I will still say that I personally prefer pieces of work that have a balance of dark and desaturated colors, the same as it may incorporate bright and saturated colors. But I mean, that's just my opinion though. It's just my opinion. Finally, the fifth reason. So I stated my fifth pet peeve as super long webcomics. This is definitely a matter of personal taste, but it's like this. In my experience of trying to finish super long webcomics, well, I tend to never reach the end, and you'd probably wonder why. Well, the reason why is because that's the point. I feel as though the point of those stories being dragged out for as long as it possibly can is specifically to make it so that people can't reach the end. I blame it on desire to get more money. I'm just be real. I blame it on money. Now, again, I totally understand that we creatives, we gotta eat and we gotta fund our lives. I get it. I do. Still, I feel like most creatives are also consumers. So it's like, do you really enjoy comics that seem to be going and going and going with no end in a foreseeable future ever? Okay, do you genuinely believe those stories are as well written and conclusive as they could be? Like, genuine question. Okay, my problem with these sort of like super long form comics is without an end in mind, it feels like the journey is taking us nowhere. All good stories will come to an end. I firmly believe that. All good stories will come to an end. Everything with a beginning should have a foreseeable conclusion. When I read an action adventure, I want the hero to have at least tried to reach their goals, to have done what they wanted to do to the best of their ability, and settle into the conclusion of their story. When I read the fantasy isekai, I want the hero or heroine to succeed and settle into their new life, or have enjoyed their new life to the fullest just as they intended. When I read the horror thriller or paranormal comic, I want the lead to solve, survive, or overcome the hell they were forced to endure, or at least see the conclusion of their horror tale. When I read the romance comic, I want the love interest to have prevailed and come together in the end, for the lead to get their lover in the end. Everything needs to end. That's how you prevent a super convoluted story from coming to be. I stumbled through that word. Without a clear end in hindsight, your story will begin to feel like it has no real message. It'll be the kind of story that has people thinking, what exactly was the story even about in the first place? It's okay. Now this example, it's not a comic or a webcomic, but I have to mention it. This is why Five Nights at Freddy's, as much as I love it, okay, will need to come to a definite end one day. It needs to fucking end. Its originally simple paranormal story is so jam-packed with excessive information now that there are hundreds of hour-plus long videos attempting to explain the lore and mechanics of the entire FNAF universe, and wildly enough, these videos often still struggle to accurately and swiftly explain everything there is to know about the franchise. There is literally just that much extra shit that has been stuffed into the story since the OG FNAF. So seriously, don't do this with your story, comic or otherwise. Have an end in mind and don't be afraid of bringing your story to a close. It makes the story you're telling feel well constructed and properly paced. And, well, those are all my pet peeves. I feel like, I really like this trend. I like this my pet peeves about blank trend of the sort. I like it. It's kind of fun. Let me know what kind of comic pet peeves you guys have in the comments, if you will. Hit the like button and subscribe if you want for more content about comics, art, writing, etc. All of the above. Thanks for listening. All love. And all of you have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful night.